I want to take you to the premier Iron Age site in southern Africa, Great Zimbabwe.
This is Great Zimbabwe. It's a special place. It was built between 1300 and 1450, when it was capital of the largest, most powerful kingdom that ever existed in southern Africa. Around 18,000 people lived here, with the king and his retinue on the hilltop above and commoners on the level ground at the base of the hill. The kingdom extended from beyond the Botswana border in the west to the Mozambican border in the east, an area roughly the size of France. And its trade connections reached across the Indian Ocean to Arabia, India, and China. Zimbabwe was a Shona kingdom. Its people were descended from some of the original Iron Age pioneers of southern Africa. To put them in some kind of context, we need to go back in time about 3,000 years to West Africa.
Back then, farmers in the Cameroon-Nigeria region began to spread out into East and Southern Africa in what eventually became one of the most remarkable expansions by people of a single language family anywhere in the world. By the end of it, Bantu languages dominated sub-Saharan Africa. These are languages we're familiar with. Zulu, Sotho, Tsonga, Shona, and Swahili all belong to the Bantu language family.
This is as good as it gets for an archaeologist in southern Africa. It's goosebump stuff. I mean, look at this walling. Such precision stonework. Not a drop of cement. They've built a wall that's 11 meters high. They say there are 900,000 stone blocks in this outer wall. I mean, look at the thickness of this wall. It's unbelievable. It's such a privilege to be here.
To see the king up there in his hilltop palace was no small thing.
I'm climbing the ancient pathway to the palace, and its narrowness here provokes an extraordinary sense of anticipation. One can imagine that 600 years ago, people coming to see the king, it might have inspired a sense of awe and fear even. And perhaps they would have approached the palace on their hands and knees, perhaps, looking down, certainly.
What an extraordinary place. It's quite magical.
Walking through the palace where the king lived, along with a few wives, his ritual sister, and some guards. You can get a great view of the town from up here and get some sense of what it might have looked like 600 or 700 years ago. Along with the walls, you need to imagine thousands of houses densely packed so that their roofs touched one another. And then in the territory around the capital, people living in ordinary homesteads, farming and producing the food that supported the capital. Farming, of course, is the reason why people expanded out of West Africa in the first place. People were looking for new lands, new pastures, new sources of iron ore. They were cultivating crops like sorghum and the millets, and kept cattle, sheep and goats, as well as chickens and dogs. They were also metallurgists and extracted iron and copper from ore to make tools and jewelry. Later they worked gold, tin, bronze and brass. But iron was always the most important, mainly for hoes for agriculture. And for this reason, archaeologists tend to use the shorthand term, the Iron Age, to refer to this period.
Iron Age farmers first reached South Africa about 1700 years ago and settled throughout the bushveld regions in the northern and eastern parts of the country, where they found good soils, sweetveldt grazing, and wood for fuel. Later, about 700 years ago, some farmers moved onto the grasslands of the highveld, but always they were restricted to areas where good summer rains fell because of their crops. So settlement expanded and contracted according to changes in climate.
Underneath all this magnificence, all this grandeur, beyond the town, farmers lived in simple homesteads, working their fields, minding their cattle, producing food, and generally ensuring that the cycle of life continued. In the end, it was the homestead that survived the rise and fall of kingdoms like Zimbabwe, the rise and fall of chiefdoms, climatic disasters. It lasted for some 2,000 years before colonization turned it into a pale ghost of itself. The homestead was really quite a remarkable institution, and it provided the heartbeat of Iron Age life.